Hey everyone, Sergio with the Insiders on Wall Street. Well, I have a very special guest today. I'm going to actually get really quiet today and have him do most of the talking. And to start with, welcome TJ. Please introduce yourself.
Awesome. Pleasure to see you this morning, Sergio. My name's TJ The Wheel Deal. I have a little channel here on YouTube, and I have a presence that's growing pretty large on Twitter here recently, or X. A little bit about my background. We'll start with the professional side. I started when I started making money was in the oil field. St. Patrick's Day of 2011. I worked as a roughneck for two companies. One was H&P, Helmerich and Payne, and
Yeah,
then I transitioned over to Neighbors Drilling because I needed to make money. I needed to make money. I had done a lot of things that I had quite a bit of success with, but it was always like feast or famine. It
yeah,
was like really, 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 really good or really, really bad, and nothing really in the middle, right? Whenever you own a bunch of businesses, that's just kind of the way that it is. So my brother encouraged me to go to the oil field. It was booming. It was like, hey, you'll make six figures. You can build up your 401k while you're kind of planning your next move. Well, I didn't know that was going to take me like 8 years, though, Sergio. It was like I thought I was going to be in and out because I was like a serial entrepreneur.
yeah.
But then I found my groove. I was like, I'm making 80 to 120,000 a year. It's like no brainer stuff. I'm building up to 401k. And then I had started messing around with swing trading. And I was just like, I could do this, like I could do this. And, I had gone through a divorce. So I was like paying child support and you had to
Yeah.
do the healthcare and all that. So
Yeah.
I found that the oil field income made it easier for me to not have to worry about those things. That way I don't get in trouble with anybody. But then my body started wearing out,
Yeah.
and then you're gone a lot. Like it was like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but then I would work extra because I was trying to max out my 401k and I was trying to build up my bankroll because I could see myself doing something full time, especially when the Robinhood app had kind of taken off. I got a lot of
Yeah.
confidence, right? So
When is this? When is this? Like you said, 8 years ago, 10 years ago?
yeah, I was in the oil field 2011 and I
Okay.
got
Yeah.
out during COVID 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oil field business. I mean, is one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet, right?
Yes, I was a derrick man, so I had to climb 90 feet,
Oh
and
wow.
I had to rope the pipe lasso that we're tripping out of the hole. So you're up there. It's called the monkey board.
Wow.
You're up there. They call you chango in Spanish. So you're up there, and you rope. If we're tripping out of the hole, you have to rope the pipe. You open the elevator, and you wrestle the pipe in. You put it into the fingers, and you do that for like 12 hours a day sometimes. Or if you're tripping into the hole, all of the pipe is sitting on the derrick, so you have to like put it in and then throw it into the elevator, latch it. You do that for like 12 hours a day sometimes. You're in charge of the mud, you're in charge of the pits, you're in charge of the pumps. You're essentially the second in command on
Yeah.
to the driller. It's like you have the driller, you have the derrick man, you have the motor man, you have the pit hand. If some crews have a pit hand, and then you have the flooring hand. So we're essentially just screwing a bunch of big screws together.
Yeah.
They call it stands. So it's like three. I worked on the triple. So it was like three stands in a row that are about 30 feet long. And
Yeah.
you just drill, baby, drill, right? Like Donald
Yeah.
Trump says, but people don't know what that means if you haven't actually worked on one of these rigs. And we drill a hole every 5 to 8 days.
Yeah.
And then you slide the rig over and you do another one. Slide the rig over, do another one. It's usually like 4 to 6 well pads. And then you got to pick everything up, do a rig move on to another location. I did that crap for 8 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's a not only it's a dangerous business, but it's a very cyclical business, right?
Yeah.
There's feast or famine going on in the oil business. I have some friends who are involved in the oil and gas business in Texas, and they tell me when oil crashes, goes to 40, 50, they're in trouble because everything is so highly leveraged, right?
Yeah, the operators, the sweet spot for them when I was in, the sweet spot was about $60 a barrel.
Yeah.
So as long as everything was 60, that was kind of like the status quo. That means your operators, like the Exxons. I worked on a ConocoPhillips rig. I
Yeah.
worked on a Shell rig and EOG rigs. Those are the three. And then there was one called Marathon Oil. I worked there a little bit as well. Like they're the operators. So they're the ones that owns the lease and everything like that. But then they contract companies like who I work for, which is Neighbors Drilling.
Yeah.
And then there's H&P. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So they contract you to go mow the lawn, essentially, right? But
Yeah.
they own the leases. They're the ones making the big money, but they don't know how to drill the hole. So
Yeah.
they contract you to go drill the hole, and I work for one of those outfits.
Well, you know what it is, oddly enough, I just started watching, actually, I'm binge watching it now, a show called Landman.
Landman,
Yeah. How accurate is that? Is it reasonably accurate?
yeah. So what he was doing is there was a big old accident in that show, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's called a workover rig. So they were just gaugers, like they're just going out there and they're just trying
yeah,
to make sure that that it's performing accordingly, because a
yeah,
gauger goes and he just looks to see the volume, right? Like how many barrels that well is producing, because
yeah,
there's pump jacks, so
yeah,
there's things that look like big old hammers. Those are called pump jacks. So they're just pumping the oil out of the ground, and then it gives you a certain amount of barrels per month or whatever. And if the well is performing, then you don't have to do anything. But when the well stops performing, then they'll have to go in there with a workover rig. And that's where his son comes into the picture. And they have like this truck, and it's like a
yeah.
makeshift thing, it's like a transformer, and it goes about 35 feet in the air, the derrick. And, that we call that the Christmas tree. And then he goes and they start working over the rig. So it's like a straw. So like, let's say this is the hole. And then there would be like a straw that, like, let's say you're eating a slushy.
Yeah,
So you put the straw in there and you start working it
yeah,
so that you can get the liquid out of there again, right?
yeah,
Like you have kids and they're like, right, and you're like, dude, like just pour some more water or whatever it is, right?
yeah,
But that sometimes the well stops producing. So you got to
yeah.
go in there and work it over, make it slush again. That way it can come out of the
It's
ground.
like a rotor rooter. It's like something like the rotor rooter.
No,
Anyway, but
essentially.
so you do this for 6 years. You're safe. You didn't lose any limbs. Your life is good.
For
You're,
8 years. For eight
you're
years. I had a couple of accidents that were
okay.
minor, but one of them is on this finger right here. It got
Okay.
smashed in the elevator. Like I was holding the pipe and I just got a little bit careless because I was like on the edge of the derrick, on the edge of the monkey. They call it the diving board. So I'm just holding the pipe, and then the driller comes up and he kicks the elevator out to make it easier for me. And when he kicked it out, it smashed my hand. So then the pipe, and then this thing weighs like 2,200 pounds probably. So it's
Yeah.
just there, and then my hand's like stuck, and this dude already closed the elevator.
Oh my
So
God.
like my hand's going down with this thing. So I just yanked my freaking hand out, and I look, and my fingers just smashed. And I
Wow.
look back, and I still have like 200 pipe that we got to put into the ground.
Wow.
So, dude, they just did it. They just sent me duct tape, bro, and stuck it up. They sent me a couple of Tylenol, and my hand's just like bleeding out the whole time. But we got to get it done. It's 3 in the morning. Who are you going to call? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the only time that I had a. We call it a near miss, but it was a little bit more because it was an incident. And then the other time is I was putting pipe in. I was feeding the pipe into the elevator, and I couldn't latch it because the elevator was out of balance. So it's called the top drive. So we call it the big yellow bus. So it was like going up, going down, trying to find the sweet spot so I could latch it. And I just couldn't get it done. I couldn't get it done. And I was like real frustrated. So he kept going down on the elevator to make it to where I'd have more leverage. But then we didn't realize that he was putting pressure on top of the pipe. So the pipe was like bowing up.
Yeah.
So the entire stand was bowing up like that, dude, and it just shot out, and it just like blew me out of the sky, dude. And it just like it
My
hit me
God,
right
man.
here. If my head
Well,
would have been to a different way, we wouldn't have this conversation right now, Sergio.
yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm glad it all worked out for you to, obviously you're in one piece, which is great because, I'm going to segue into what you're doing now. So 2020 hits, pandemic hits, pretty much everything is shut down. By
Yes.
now you had kind of figured out, you said you were doing a little bit of a swing trading, and by now you had kind of figured out, wait a minute, maybe I can do this, right? I mean, is that
Yeah.
how it all started?
That is how it started. But it was even before that. I credit Uber and Lyft because a buddy of mine, Randy Rodriguez, was driving Uber and Lyft in Hawaii.
Okay.
And I was one of those guys that I go home, and then when it's time to pack your bags and go back to work, it's like tears come down your eyes. You don't want to leave home, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna miss birthdays. I missed a lot of stuff when I was in oil field. She was like, dude, you have a fancy car, go drive Uber and Lyft. You'll make a couple $100 a day. It's almost oil field money when you consider you don't have to the groceries, you don't have to be away from home or any of that stuff. He was like, so you really only need to make like $5,000 or $6,000 a month, And
Yeah.
that's where the oil field money, because you get to work all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas in the oil field, you work for 2 weeks and then you're gone for 2 weeks or home for 2 weeks, but you're not making any money during those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I started moonlighting with Uber and Lyft in like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
So on my days off, I was used to working 12 hours a day. So I started grinding Uber and Lyft on my days off, dude. And then I look at the little pay report, on the little app, they tell you how well you're doing.
Yeah.
And I looked up a week later and I was like at $1,200-1,500.
Yeah.
So it was my exit strategy from the oil field. Nothing to do with the stock market. I was just like, dude, I just need to make 80 to 120 a year. Life's simple. So I just started grinding Uber and Lyft on my days off. So then when the layoff came during COVID, I didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm just going to go drive full time. And then, dude, it was, it was kind of, it was beautiful from the standpoint that there was no traffic on the road.
Yeah.
And people kept ordering rides though.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm quite familiar with Uber and Lyft. So I run the largest channel in the country, actually, when it comes to Uber and Lyft, and I know the companies extremely well, and we cater to an audience of 300,000 drivers, actually. So, but that's another subject. But yeah, Uber and Lyft has its space. Uber and Lyft touches a lot of people's lives, as far as either extra income, side hustle, or a full-time income. And so you're doing Uber and Lyft. That's also taxing, by the way. You're sitting in a car 12 hours a day.
Tired. It was more tiring than the oil field.
Yeah, it's not easy to drive. People think it's easy, but it's not. People think, oh, it's just pick up point A, drop off point B, but it's not like that. And then there's risks. Obviously, you're driving, I don't know, 5, 6, 7,000 miles a month.
Yeah.
Some people drive only 5, 6,000 miles a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you have those risks too. So now, did you have like some sort of a bankroll to gather already to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. But as you know, right, in our world, blowing accounts is nothing new. Everybody blows accounts, few accounts before. I call it the tuition they have to pay to Wall Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
did you do that? Did you blow any accounts? Did you pay your tuition?
No, I did not blow an account. I started small. So if I could, so I didn't know if you wanted to talk Uber, if you wanted to talk finance. So we're talking finance. I can give you guys, I can put that out, right?
Yeah.
But the reason that I like to lead out with the Uber story into this, because that's the truth. What happens, I was driving Uber and Lyft, and then I had already learned how to sell options, and I sell wine tours to the customers.
Yeah.
So the customers were kind of driving 2, 3 in the morning. I was strategic about it. I drive them at night, and I was like, hey, y'all been on a wine tour? So I had my hat on, 777 wine tours in San Antonio. And I cross sell a bunch of wine tours to them. But then my buddy Chris is like, dude, talk about the options. See if anybody has a Robinhood account. Show them your Robinhood account. I was up like 300% for the year.
Yeah.
And charge them a fee and show them how to sell options. So, dude, I started doing it at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, taking people to the airport. All the business class people in San Antonio, to show up in my Jaguar. Like, what else do you do? And then on my profile, it said I sell options for a living.
Yeah.
I look at their Robinhood account. I glance at it and I'm like, dude, I think I could collect like $20,000, $30,000 for you right now here in premiums. And I explain covered calls real quick. I'm talking about a little 2-minute pitch on covered calls. These business plan people like, do it. I'm like, dude, I ain't gonna do it for free. And I would charge them $500, dude. And I'd make them like 20, 30,000 on the spot. And I had over 400 people give me $500. That's how I got a big part of my bankroll started.
Yeah.
So I did like literally a 2 to 5 minute coaching session, but then they had my phone number and then I would walk them through it because they don't want to just make it one time because it gets addictive, right? When you're selling options.
Yeah.
And that is how I got a big part of my bankroll. And then I liquidated my 401k at the time was about 250 grand. So I look up and I have $500,000. And then from an Uber customer, he gave me the idea to do an equity fund, a hedge fund.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, you have a gift. You know anybody with money? And I'm one of those guys that I just knew people with money.
Yeah.
So I started making phone calls. Like, hey, I have this idea. I can sell options, and I have 5 crazy people to give me $1 million each. We went through, filed all the paperwork. I used a company out of Texas to take me to the promised land. You had to do a PPM, private placement memorandum. It was a Reg D 506 offering or something crazy that they called it. And I was halfway familiar because I used to work for a VC firm in Culver City, California.
Yeah.
So I was kind of familiar with how all that worked. So I became the general partner. They became the limited partner. But since I don't have like the Series 7 or anything like that, we had to use a third party for the brokerage.
Yeah.
So it was a hassle. But long story short, I raised 5 million and I doubled that twice and I got 10% commission. And that's what really catapulted.
So you didn't charge the usual 20, I guess, huh? So
No, because I didn't have any experience, dude. And I was just like practically begging people to give me the money, and I was willing to work on commission because I had
yeah.
Uber, I had lived, and I was playing poker for a living. And the way that it had been set up with Donald Trump, he said, we're giving you quite a bit of money during COVID. Like I
Yeah.
qualified for unemployment.
Yep.
I was getting like about 70% of my oil field base pay for about 6 to 9 months, I think, during COVID. So all of my bills were like literally $5,000 a month at the time. So I could
Yeah.
cover like almost all of that, a couple of poker sessions, and my life is on easy street.
Yeah.
So all of the Uber and Lyft money was going into the Robinhood account as well. And I just started growing it aggressively. And then after I had figured out that I could do the hedge fund thing, and I doubled that twice, so went from 5 to 10 and then doubled it again. And I got 10% of that money and I was on my way. Dude.
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean, well, but let's just go back a couple of maybe years in your life. This did not come obviously to you automatically. You learned this from somewhere. How did you learn that selling options is the way to go as opposed to buying options? How did you learn that? Who
I
taught you that?
remember like it was yesterday. I was at a driving range in Boerne, Texas. I was at a driving range with my financial advisor, Robert Armendariz, New York Life, shout out. He was like, you need to find something more sustainable, something consistent. The oil field money. What are we going to do? How are you going to do that in the stock market? He's always lecturing me, and he's a kid. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to go back to the oil field. We're just right now we're on the rest period. So I didn't know that I was going to be able to do this full time.
Yeah.
But then one of his buddies from the New York Life office sold covered calls. So he just glanced at my portfolio and he's like, dude, I think you can make like 5,000 or 6,000 a month right now just selling covered calls because I own a bunch of shares of a bunch of companies.
Yeah.
So anyway, dude, I started selling covered calls right there, dude. It was 2 companies. First one was SPCE. So I didn't own shares of the company at the time, but I had done some swing trading with it.
Okay.
And it was the Shamath Philippati or whatever. He was pumping it, right? He was pumping it at the time. So I bought 200 shares of SPCE, sold cover calls against those shares, had them called away. I didn't know anything about rolling or anything, right? This is just a little real quick coaching that I got on the golf course. So I did that successfully. And then I had like 400 or 500 shares of DraftKings.
Yeah.
So I just literally started turning it into a covered call, like an ATM machine. And then I would call the dude from New York Life and he would like walk me through it and stuff. But again, I know nothing about rolling. But then one night, dude, poker went bad. I lost like $1,000. There was no rides coming in from Uber and Lyft because it was just like crappy outside, like really, really crappy. And I don't want to be out because I mean, these people are wet. They're going to get in my car. It just wasn't the right situation. So I Googled what is the most consistent way to make money in the stock market with options. Because I had done a Facebook post saying, hey, I'm swing trading. This is the basket of stocks, etc. But I feel like I'm just not making oil field money. What can I do to make oil field money? And this dude, shout out Fred Medrano from just my regular Facebook feed. And I knew him because he had introduced me to Bitcoin in 2014.
Okay.
He said, you need to look into options. You'll have leverage. So your bankroll will trade a lot larger. And I was like, dude, I feel like options are for people that can't really afford stock. I don't need to play over there. That's what I told him. And he, LOL, you're ignorant. Go research options. And he sent me a YouTube link.
Yeah.
He sent me a YouTube link on options. And I was familiar with options as a kid. Because I used to watch this infomercial called Optionetics.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, I'm talking about it was like 2 or 3 in the morning and they want you to send, a few $100s that we didn't have at the time. I was like 8, 9, 10 years old watching this program. And I would tell my dad, I was like, I want to do that, Pop. I want to do that. He was like, well, it has to do with math and money. You'll probably be good at it, mijo. And he was always like he was a champion, right? For me. Like he would always champion all of my efforts and ideas. So I knew that I wanted to do that as a kid, but then I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then Fred Medrano puts me back in, and I went down that rabbit hole, dude. And I have been down that rabbit hole since.
Yeah.
And what Google told me was that covered calls was the way to go. And then I
Yeah.
tell Robert Amendadas from New York Live, he introduces me to his buddy James that already selling covered calls. So I had an in.
Yeah.
So I just did cover calls for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know that you could do a cash secured put.
Yeah.
So during my little research on YouTube, I ran across the Coca-Cola story in Warren Buffett, where he had made a crap load of money selling cash secured puts on Coca-Cola.
Yep.
So I was like, how could that be? This dude got paid money just for agreeing to buy Coca-Cola at a discount from those prices.
Yeah.
And dude, it was one of those things where I feel like I didn't sleep for like 3 days, Sergio.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
like
an aha moment. And I was like, dude, hold on 1 second. This feels like I'm stealing money. So immediately start trying to find everything wrong with it. I was like, you mean to tell me that Coca-Cola is here? I'm going to agree to buy it here.
yeah.
The catch is you got to be able to do 100 shares.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay buying it if it happens. And they're
Yeah.
going to pay you money on top of it. So really your entry point is really here. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, dude, that's like a no-lose situation. So
Brilliant.
I forgot all about covered calls. I was like, I want to get paid to buy shares at a discount because I'm thrifty. I'm a value person.
Yeah.
I don't like to pay retail for anything.
Yeah.
So I was
Well,
like,
I mean,
you're going to pay me money for agreeing to buy shares of stock wholesale. And then I figured out that you could sell covered calls against those shares. And now I bought them at a wholesale. I got paid for that. I'm going to agree to sell them at retail. I'm going to get paid for that. And then the difference between the wholesale and the retail, I mean, dude, that's a triple income strategy. Well, hell, I didn't know that was called the wheel strategy.
yeah.
Like, I thought I was inventing something, Sergio.
Yeah.
And then I landed on the wheel strategy and I felt so stupid because a lot of people were doing this thing.
Yeah. Well, now you're like a kid in a candy store.
Dude,
right?
I was
And then now you discover this. And so, we talked we talked about the wheel strategy. I mean, just now, actually. So, without going into too many details, right? Um, it is obviously a strategy. It's a valid strategy that exists. And so I'm going to get into a little bit of more detail about what you're doing now, right? You're continuing doing the wheel strategy. You have the YouTube channel, you have an audience, but I had discovered you on X for a very different reason. Okay, so my background, everybody knows who watches me, so I don't need to talk about myself, but I want to talk about you and your way of treating social media and YouTube. And what attracted me to you was your full transparency. Okay. And I honestly did not know anything about you, did not know who you were, but I'm on X because of the other channel. And I'm like, okay, I post obviously actively, but then, you go through your feed and the algo picks something for you once in a while. Right.
Sure.
So I started actually my finance channel like 5 months ago saying, okay, I want to help these Uber and Lyft drivers who have no
Very true.
financial planning, and I want to share my 30 plus years of experience, paid forward, but I want to do it fully transparently. I don't want to do this scamming thing done, oh, I made $1 million on zero DTEs today. I bought a Lamborghini. I'm like, oh, I couldn't care less about that. So I thought there was like a crossover audience and I can help people that way because, that's at my stage of my life, right? All I want to do is pay it forward and be transparent and help people. And then I discover you. I'm going, wait a minute, this guy's doing exactly what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel, because we know YouTube is YouTube. There's no money in YouTube unless you grow to a certain size, then there's good money on YouTube. But long story short, why are you so transparent? Because the other thing I see that I'm really quite surprised actually, that you use Robinhood for your account. And I'm going like, at his size, at your size, which I know you post quite often on X, and I'm going like, why is he not with a prime broker? Why is he not doing all these other things? But then I'm going to let you explain that. But why did you decide to be this transparent?
Real good question. I created what I couldn't find. I went down that rabbit hole,
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, I feel like I got something here. I can find a stock that I want to own. If I can afford 100 shares, make sure it's in my lane, right? Like you
yeah,
can't have champagne taste on a beer budget, right? So make sure that you can afford it. So I'm like, I agree to sell the I sell the cash security puts to get paid for that. If the shares get put on me, I sell covered calls. I agree to sell the shares at a certain price. They pay me for that, and then I make the difference, right? So I'm like, it's tough though because I feel like I still had a job.
yeah,
So I'm always looking for the next play. So I was a buy, hold, and hoper, right? Because I have 401k and stuff.
yeah,
So I was like, so what if I took the game a step further? And I was like, what if I figure out think and grow rich mentality, other people's efforts, other people's money, other people's ideas, and be careful with other people's opinions, right? Because they can
yeah,
shoot your dreams down.
yeah,
I was like, I want to own shares with other people's money because I feel like I have a job here and I need to be able to walk away from this portfolio because I think I'm going to go back to the oil field. This
yeah,
was my mindset at the time, right? This is pre-hedge fund. So I was like, I want to play a game called I'm going to pick 5 to 10 stocks. It took me like 50 or 60 to get to those.
yeah,
And I'm going to sell puts and calls on those stocks over and over again. That way, the shares that I own, essentially, I own them with other people's money because I paid for them with the premiums. So that became the game that I was playing because I kept going on different YouTube channels over and over, trying to see what the latest and greatest was. I had the shiny object syndrome. I called it a game of whack-a-mole, right? You ever play
yep,
whack-a-mole? And I'm
yep,
like, okay, that's not sustainable because that's a
yeah,
job. I don't want that. I already had that. I don't want it. I was like, who has a channel that actually trades live? That way, it's like I'm showing up to class every day and we're
yeah,
all essentially making money together because I researched that it wasn't illegal to do so. Like, it's not illegal to tell people what you're buying or selling in the stock market. Like, I'm not an insider, I'm not any of that stuff.
yeah,
And I kept going, dude. And I started YouTube. Then I discovered the live feature on YouTube.
yep,
And people would go live, but it was just like it was like a CNBC channel. It
yeah,
was like the crap that I'm watching over here is the crap that I'm watching here. So everybody's real good at talking about stocks, Sergio, but nobody's actually doing anything with them that could help
yeah,
me. And because the channels that I was watching is like they're all telling me what they did,
yeah,
but that's not real time. That doesn't really help me. It doesn't
yeah,
really help me. I mean, it's great. I could learn from it, if you will, but it doesn't actually help me to make money.
yeah,
I was like, who's trading live? And then it was just like all these day traders and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to
yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So I was like, there's got to be someone because I knew that I wanted to sell options for a living.
yeah,
So I would literally go there and type in selling options live on YouTube, bro, zero.
yeah.
It
No,
just
I
didn't
think
exist.
I think you just found something that obviously, which is very difficult, which is something that nobody's doing on YouTube, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's everything on YouTube, but I think the people don't do it that way because I honestly I think they embellish their success, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's not there. I don't think it's there, right? I think they're in there for the views and the flex and whatever, which is like the wrong way to do it. But I want to hit upon what you just said. You just pick yourself 10 stocks. I have a saying: stocks are like girlfriends or wives. Each one behaves differently. You know what I'm saying? If
Yeah.
you're into 10,000 girlfriends, which there is 10,000 stocks,
Not
you're going to fail.
sustainable.
You're going to
Yeah.
fail. But you cannot learn their intricate behaviors. You cannot learn how they behave under certain circumstances. So you're doing the wheeling strategy. Okay. We don't need to go into the technicalities because people can watch you on your YouTube
Yeah.
channel. And most people who watch this probably have an idea of what it is. But I want to play the devil's advocate for a minute, right? So on the wheeling strategy, right? It seems like to me, I sell nothing but premium all day long, most of the time, right? But not necessarily to get assigned the shares and sell cover calls with it, because I believe in a bull market that we had last 2 years, right? Ridiculous bull market.
Yeah, I feel
It
like it's
kind of
really been
caps
since
your
2020 with a little dip in 2022.
Yeah, well, it feels like, selling a cover call on a massive bull market kind of caps my upside, right? I want to enjoy the ride as long as I can. And, I want to
For
stay on
sure.
that horse. I want to stay on that winner. But it seems like what you're doing is more apt for maybe a larger size account, but you already said it. You started small.
I
What
did.
would you say to people who say, well, I don't have $200,000. I don't have $100,000. I don't have a six-figure account. I have $5,000 in my Robinhood account. What are
Mhm.
they supposed to do?
I would say that you need to have a funding strategy and
Okay.
you need to, I mean, here's a surefire way to get wealthy or rich in the stock market.
Yeah.
Invest a couple $100 a week, a month, whatever your budget is, and put
Yes.
your head down, live life, look up in 30 years, you're going to have $1 million.
Dollar cost average, right?
And it's probably no brainer investing
Yep.
because Sergio, I've never planned an entry in my 401k and it grew. I've
Yep.
never listened to an earnings report and it grew. I didn't even know
Absolutely.
who the Fed was for probably 8 years and it grew. You
Yep.
follow me? Like
Yep.
I didn't give a dang about Microsoft, Google, Apple. I didn't know that FANG was the thing. I didn't know about the Mag 7. I didn't know about any of that stuff. What I did know was I wanted to save 10 to 20% of all of my money, but that wasn't going to be enough because I was going to lose to inflation. So I was a little financial savvy already. I was financially literate, if you will.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to make sure that I can put this money away so that it could grow. Because one day I will not be able to work for money. I won't be able to exchange dollars for hours, right?
Yeah.
So I need something that can, a vehicle where my money can grow.
Yeah.
So I think I'd say for 90% of the population, that's probably what they should do. But
Yeah. Passive investment.
there's people that want to do this full time. So
Yeah.
let's talk about those people. I think it's like any other business. You need to be adequately funded. What's
Yeah.
adequately funded for me? Absolute bare bones minimum, 25 grand. Why? Because if you see opportunities and you need to slide in and out, you're at least not dealing with pattern day trade stuff.
Yeah.
So if you don't have at least 25,000, I think that you don't have a legitimate shot in this business because this business is hard, Sergio. Being undercapitalized and
Very hard.
undercapitalized mentally, bro, you're asking for trouble
Yeah. I mean, I say to myself, even after 30 years, I'm still learning. I'm still adjusting.
all the time.
And what you say is very true. Mental capital versus actual capital, right? And I feel like in a lot of people's cases, both are missing, not just one. And then they expect success. They see these, jockeys on YouTube. They go, zero DTEs. I made this much. I made that much. I'm like,
Crazy.
look, man, good luck. They're like, if you believe in playing the lotto every day, the outcome is not going to be good. But how have been your returns? Obviously, you said you have a hedge fund, and I see your account on Robinhood that you post on X, right? By
Sure.
the way, why are you using Robinhood? Why don't you use like a prime broker that gives you more choices, maybe, or I don't know. I mean,
Sure.
that's just curious to me.
Sure. Can you go ahead and share the screen and we can show the returns and stuff. Uh,
Sure.
So essentially, the reason that I utilize Robinhood, guys, is because I just understand it. I'm not a real techie person. I mean, we struggled doing the StreamYard thing when we first got started, Sergio. That's who I am. I'm saying that is who I am. My son has taught me the little that I know as far as like using the computers and stuff, because I didn't grow up during that time. I'm turning 50 years old next week. And I
Well,
just
happy
did not
birthday.
I did not understand the whole computer thing. I'm semi savvy now, but I'm not that savvy. So
Yeah,
Robinhood's user interface is really, really good. But had a rough week like everybody else in the market, right? We're
yeah,
down, for the month. It's okay. When in doubt, zoom out, right? And then
yeah,
you feel a little bit better about it 3 months. And then the year to date's okay. Then for the year, had a pretty decent year. You're not going to see crazy, crazy returns here because I'm slow and steady winning the race. This
yeah,
isn't like I'm not trying to scratch a lottery ticket here. I figured out a way to manufacture the win over long stretches of time. And then
yeah,
we even go to the all time. So you're going to see that I didn't start out too great. And there wasn't a lot of money in here either. The money didn't start getting pumped in until early last year because we started taking hedge fund money and putting it over here.
yeah,
And then I hit an inflection point because the stocks that I was accumulating, they started going up in value. I made like $500,000 in a company called Palantir. And then these are the holdings right here. You have the SoFi, Amazon, Riot, Tesla. Those are the four horsemen. Those are the corner posts of the portfolio. And
Yeah.
then Hood is trying to get its way in there. And then everything that you see on the bottom are swing trades. These are my will stocks. These are stocks that I'm selling puts, selling calls. I'm owning some shares, but I'm totally okay with getting these shares called away for a profit. But Sergio, let me tell you and the audience, this is the breadcrumb stuff.
Yeah.
This stuff, this is cash flow. I do very, very well with all these stocks right here. But
Yeah.
ultimately, what I'm trying to do is just to keep accumulating more and more shares, specifically of Amazon right now. That's the number one stock that I want to build a portfolio on. That way, I have something that I could just like walk away from one day. Riot is the biggest swing trade that I've ever been in. I'm not sure if it's going to end up being an investment because there's still things that it has to prove to me. But here I'll put it on total return as well. You see that I've done extremely well with SoFi. I think that SoFi will be the biggest win that I've ever had in the stock market.
Yeah.
But I had a strategy, man. I was like, I'm going to accumulate a bunch of shares. I'm going to sell a bunch of cover calls against these shares. And then I'm going to finance leaps with these shares and run the poor man cover call campaign. And I just had a bunch of cover calls expire worthless. So right now, all of these shares are unencumbered. I could
Yeah.
just push the sell button and then just write out the long calls. But that's not what I
Yeah.
want to do. I've got 2,400 contracts here. I'm sorry, 2,900 contracts. I got 1,400 leaps and I've got the 150,000 shares. So I have 2,900 rental units that on the next pretty big green candle, they're all going to go collect rent for me.
Yeah.
And that's
But
why
but no, this is unbelievable, obviously, right? But that you're even showing this to the audience. I mean, most people wouldn't even dare. So is this the hedge fund account that you're talking about?
no, this is personal.
Okay, this personal. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
No, the hedge
so
fund we got out of zero.
so you
It's grown a little bit more. Yeah.
yeah, so you're doing the hedge. Are you still doing the hedge fund thing or no?
Yes, yes. We're
Okay.
trying to wrap it up though, because I want to do a new one and I want to go like totally legit from the standpoint of and let me get over here. We don't have to that way we can just talk. Can you do it where we can there we go.
Yeah, but the thing that hedge fund is tough because when you're trading with other people's money, it's
See, so
difficult.
I say hate hedge fund. Really, really the technical thing is that we have a family office.
Yeah,
So, but it's just terminology, right? But we have a
yeah,
family
yeah,
office because I married my wife and she's from a well-to-do family. And then my father-in-law saw what I was doing. He's an attorney.
yeah,
And he was like, we need to protect your family office. You know what I mean? So he did all this stuff. He was like, you're never going to go to jail. We're good because I have this big umbrella and you can do whatever the hell I say that you can do.
yeah.
So he created this family office for me and gave me
Okay,
layers of
all
protection.
right. No, I mean, I think what you're doing is amazing, seriously, because I literally started this channel
Mhm.
because I didn't know you existed. So I was like,
Sure.
okay, I'm going to do it fully transparently. I post
Yeah.
my account, I post my positions every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do live streams just like you do. I didn't even know you existed, but now that
Yeah.
I know you existed, great. I go like, this guy beat me to it because it's completely lacking. Transparency is completely lacking. Look, I don't want to take too much of your time, but
Yeah, but
how?
that's the moat that I wanted to create on the channel, and I'm excited for you too because you came on my channel
Yeah,
during an episode of Wheelers, and I was like, my God, this dude has way more knowledge than I do. So I'm really, really excited that because I tell people I'm a one-trick pony. It's just a really good trick. It's a
yeah,
very profitable trick. And then the thing that I have is I have a real good temperament, and I have the ability to hold on to shares for long periods of time.
yeah,
Because the very first stock that I ever bought was INTU.
yeah.
And I held it for over 15 years. And then I bought the IPO of Google. I had 16,000
Well,
bucks. Bought the
that's one
IPO
thing
of
I want to
Google.
ask you about. I want to finish with you giving some sage advice to people, or traders, investors, whatever they may be, right? Look, there's many ways to skin this cat.
Facts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wheeling is one way, zero DTs is all the way to the other end of the spectrum is another way. But my thing is there's many ways to do this, right? There's not one way, much better, less risky. Everything has risk in life.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no riskless trade, as we know,
No.
because I believe that too many people today involved in the market, specifically, they got involved during COVID because they were sitting home swiping up on Robinhood, right, and making money. They have no idea what a bear market is. They have no
No.
idea what a crash is. They have no idea. That's when accounts get blown away, right? So to me, important thing is always be cautious, right? Always, don't stretch yourself with risk, because risk management, I think, is the most important thing
Yeah.
in trading or in investing. A lot of people have no idea about risk management, because I tell people, look, I go, TJ, I can do 10 trades. I can be right on 5, wrong on 5. You wouldn't expect me to double my money, would you? Well, if
No.
you risk manage properly, you could,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's what you're doing with your wheeling, and you're managing risk properly, because these stocks are not the most volatile, but they're reasonably volatile. So tomorrow,
Right.
if you,
Riot's pretty volatile.
I mean, if you go through like a 20, 30, 40% drawdown, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Japanese yen carry trade
Very
crash.
straight. Yeah.
I mean, 30% in like what, a month, right?
Yeah.
There is no account that's not going to get hurt. But it seems like with the wheel strategy, you have some cushion with the cover calls that you're selling, then you can survive those kind of things.
Yeah.
But
So
I want you to,
I tell
take,
people whenever you sell premiums, those are your crumbs. But owning shares long term and realizing 300-400% return on those shares long term,
yeah,
that's the loaf of bread that we're all after. So when I sell cash secure puts, cover calls, I roll when it makes dollars and cents. It's because what I'm really trying to do is twofold. Is one, I want to lower the adjusted cost basis to zero on the shares that I want to keep long
yeah,
term.
yeah,
But the other part that people don't talk about is I'm always going to have dip money,
yeah,
because I'm collecting premium instead of just like injecting cash. I
yep,
call them artificial injections of cash whenever I sell premium successfully. And I'm
yep,
always, the thing that I look at every day is not the investing balance, is my brokerage cash, my individual cash, is it climbing or declining?
okay,
Because I'm trying to make sure that I always have enough money for that big dip, because it might not be an overall market dip, but there can be a short report on SoFi, there could be a short report on Tesla, and
yep,
that's the dip that I'm looking for. You know what I
yep,
mean? Because I'm like, especially when I think that dip is full of crap, that's where you load up, and that's where you can write them up $2 or $3 and do a swing trade within your long-term holding. And now you're like, shoot, now I'm really free rolling on this particular stock. So I
yep,
always want to make sure that I got dip money. How can
yep,
I do that? Sell put, sell cost, collect premium, and roll when it makes dollars and cents. You're always going to have dip money. You're not always going to be reaching in your pocket to fund the account, because that is not sustainable either.
yeah. I
Because
mean,
you got
can
to
you,
live life. Mama doesn't want to hear about I can't go buy a purse because I'm over here
yeah,
buying stocks all the time, you know?
yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And the thing, I want to finish with this. I want to give you the floor. Give the audience some advice, because I know for myself that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and I think a lot of people treat it as a sprint. Their timelines don't match with what they're trying to do, and then they blow account after account. They go like, "Oh, I couldn't do it. I hate this." I'm like, "Yeah, because you treated it as a sprint. This is not a sprint." That's one thing, and the other thing is talk to the audience a little bit about what you just said, financial and intellectual property. You need to have those together to be successful. So finish with that.
Sure. So if I would give anybody not financial advice, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Not financial advice. No.
I don't have a license to tell you these things because I haven't
Yeah,
passed the exams, right?
yeah.
What I would say is treat this like a hamburger stand.
Okay.
And you need to go find your 3, 4, 5 items in that hamburger stand that you can consistently ring the cash register with,
Yeah.
and learn all the aspects as if it was a hamburger stand. Let's just think about the hamburger stand for a second. You're going to make sure that it's a great location. There's plenty of traffic flow. You need to find out who owns that piece of property, because you got to pay them rent. You're going to have to deal with your supplier, who's supplying you the lettuce, the tomatoes, the ketchup, the mustard, all the condiments. Where are you getting your beef, etc.? You will
Yeah.
learn all of the aspects of the hamburger stand, and then you need to know how to work that hamburger stand. And you got to make sure that you have employees for that hamburger stand, because if they don't show up, guess who has to man that hamburger stand? You. So if it
Yeah.
was a hamburger stand, these are all the things that you would learn about it. And then now imagine if you're going to go try to get an investor because you want hamburger stand number 2.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of financials would you need to provide to those people, to those potential investors, prospective investors, to invest in your hamburger stand? So you need to learn about the financials of your hamburger stand. And then when I look at each of these companies, they're a menu item for my hamburger stand. So I want to learn everything that I can about them and look at the M's. the moat. Do they have a moat? The management, the money, all the aspects of the money. Do they have the money to stay in business? Are they making money? If not, when are they going to make money? I need to know what their runway is. It's like it's like an airplane. The airplane's going here, and eventually you run out of runway, and you got to fly or you crash. Right? There's no other option at the airport because there's only so much runway. So I need to know how long can this company stay in business, because I need a 3 to 5 year window. If I'm going to put that menu item into my hamburger stand, I need a 3 to 5 year window to be able to manufacture the win. So the last end that I look at is look at the moat, the management, the money, the market. How does the market feel about it? And then the last end that I look at is, can I manufacture the win here? Am I getting a good enough entry point? What am I willing to pay for this stock? How many revolutions of the wheel within this stock do I need to perform so that I can lower the adjusted cost base to zero? Because when I've lowered the cost base to zero, I have manufactured the win, and now I can move on to the next menu item in the hamburger stand. But it's like everybody wants a hamburger stand, but then I'm going to introduce hot dogs, oh, chili cheese fries, oh, pretzels, oh, pizza. And I'm like, bro, you need a little focus.
Yeah.
Get real good with the hamburgers. You're going to do double meat. You're going to do some with bacon, some avocado, some protein wraps. What are you going to, like get good with all the aspects of the hamburger before you look at pizzas and hot dogs.
Yeah.
And I just think that people need focus. Like find your stocks, find your strategy, and find who you are in the market and who you desire to be in the market, and formulate a game plan to get there. Figure out what the goal is, and then reverse engineer that goal to see what do you need to be doing today to make sure that you're living out that dream tomorrow. Because people think that things happen on accident. Dude, I'm an overnight success that was 45 years in the making. You know what I mean? Like this thing happened for me very, very quickly, according to you guys. But I've been grooming myself, just intellectually reading the right books. I called it windshield education, right? I always put on the books and tapes and stuff while I'm driving, and just getting the right positive mindset going, because I was already rich mentally before it actually showed up on the paper.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I need to go get schooling from people that have done it. Because if you do what they do, you'll theoretically get what they got, right? It's called like cheating in school. It's frowned upon. So that would be my recommendation: is have a realistic time horizon, find your menu items, stick to the strategy, and then go find people that are having success in that arena and see if they'll allow you to learn from them.
Yeah.
Because you got to have a mentor and you got to have a coach. And I'm not saying go pay thousands of dollars for that stuff. There's a lot of free info out there. Your channel is a good source of that. I have that little channel. And then there's other people that are giving you a lot of information for free. Go exhaust all of that information. And then if you want to take it to another level, go find somebody that will charge you a reasonable amount of money and go to school. We all paid money to go to school, right? But don't be squandering too much money on that. Don't be lazy. There's a lot of information out there, and go grab it.
Yeah, I love your analogy of the hamburger stand, because get great at one thing instead of good at 12 different things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it's a life lesson as well. So I want to thank you. I appreciate your time. Looking forward to showing up on your channel if you invite me back again. I think I can share some of my experience
on Wheelers, dude. You're more than welcome. Or you ever see me live on I put the link on there. Like, are people on the chat and they've been on there? Like, hey, send me a link. I'll put the link on the chat, dude. We can always chop it up. I'm an easygoing dude.
No,
yes, I've had some success in the market, but I'm the same guy. Like, I'm always going to be the same guy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, and happy birthday, by the way. I know you have a birthday coming up.
February the 5th, man. We're going to New York for my 50th. So we're
okay. I lived in New York, so let me give you. I don't know if you like pizza, but who doesn't like pizza?
Dude, I've gone to the original Grimaldi's in Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn Heights.
Yeah, well, if you like, wood-fired old style pizza, John's on Bleecker Street.
What's it called?
John's on Bleecker Street.
On Bleecker Street, okay.
You cannot top it. I'm telling you this. If you like,
dude, I'll send you a screenshot. I'm gonna go find it. How far is it from? So we're staying in Times Square this time.
Not that far. It's in Brooklyn. Not that far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. So I'll send you a text, and then you gotta check that place out.
Dude, I'll definitely go get a piece of pie there, dude. I'm excited.
Absolutely. All right. You have a great day, and I'll see you around. Much success to you.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate you. God bless you, Sergio.
Take care.